Ivy Valentine subscribes to Mark Yoon, so should you. Enjoy your treat!
Of every character in Soul Calibur, Siegfried is among the characters who has seen the biggest changes in their story between the timelines. In the old timeline, Siegfried's story begins in the time of Soul Edge. Siegfried was born to Sir Frederick, a German knight, and Marguerite, a townswoman who he had shared an intimate night with. After their intimate night, he left for 9 months and found that his lover had given birth to a son, who he was happy to claim as his. Frederick raised Siegfried and taught him how to fight with a sword. However, Frederick was once again set off to war. Without his father to guide him, Siegfried fell into a band of outlaws known as the Schwarzwind. One day, they decided that they wanted to kill any knight who they came across who appeared to be fleeing from their duty in order to steal their equipment. They had a run-in with knights for that same reason one night, and Siegfried was proud to be the one who beheaded their leader. But once he removed the leader's helmet, by the light of the moonlight, he was horrified to see that his own father was the one that had been beheaded. Siegfried very quickly began to lose his mind and convinced himself that someone else had done it, and that he needed to find and kill his father's true murderer. Having heard rumors of the sword Soul Edge, Siegfried decided that only he could accomplish the task of killing his father's murderer if he had Soul Edge to wield. He spent time in Ostrheinsburg working under the noble Stur-Stefan, who he believed to be in possession of Soul Edge. Once he got close enough to Stur-Stefan, he killed him and stole his sword, but was frustrated to learn that it was not Soul Edge. Eventually, he found Soul Edge next to a dead corpse of the dread pirate Cervantes and had reached out for it. But before he could take hold, Cervantes' corpse rose, engulfed in flames, and attacked Siegfried. After Siegfried defeated Cervantes' corpse, which began being controlled by Inferno, he was able to claim Soul Edge as his prize. The moment he took hold of it, the evil seed occurred, sending a beam that rained down horrors and terrors across the globe. During the moments of the evil seed, Siegfried heard Soul Edge speak to him. It told him that if he collected souls for it, then it would resurrect his father. He was quick to agree to those terms, and thus Nightmare was born. In Soul Calibur 1, Siegfried has been Nightmare for 3 years and is still bent on vengeance against the person who had killed his father. Soul Edge had promised him that he would resurrect his father, and Siegfried believed that it delivered in its promise. However, he found that he had merely shown him illusions of his father while in the castle of Ostrheinsburg one night. The castle security had been breached by Kilik and Changhua and fought and defeated him and shattered Soul Edge. Siegfried had temporarily been freed from Soul Edge's grasp on his mind. Siegfried also came to terms with the fact that it was him who killed his father. In an attempt to keep Soul Edge from ever falling into the wrong hands again, Siegfried tried his best to stay as far away from other people as possible, but found that in his sleep, the sword would possess his body again. 4 years later, during the events of Soul Calibur 2, Soul Edge had completely taken over Siegfried's body once again, and he set out to find all the shards of Soul Edge had scattered in an attempt to restore Soul Edge. One day, Nightmare had returned to Ostrheinsburg after another day of trying to find more shards, and he found Raphael waiting for him there. Raphael challenged him for the right to own Soul Edge, and the two fought. Raphael was on the brink of death, with one blow being all Nightmare needed to finish the job. But Siegfried, from within Nightmare's mind, held Nightmare back from delivering the killing strike. While Nightmare was struggling against himself, Raphael took the opportunity to pierce Soul Edge's eye, breaking its hold on Siegfried. In that moment, Soul Calibur had appeared to Siegfried, and he was eager to take it and use it to tear through Soul Edge further, then destroy his Nightmare armor. From that moment on, Siegfried vowed to atone for all of his sins and hoped to use Soul Calibur to do so. In the new timeline, Siegfried has a very similar origin and has a similar trajectory in the way of his relationship with Soul Edge and Nightmare. However, one of the most glaring differences between the timelines for Siegfried is the partial canonization of the game Soul Calibur Legends. The story of Soul Calibur Legends follows Siegfried and his friendship with Ishka Farkas, who was a Hungarian court jester who wanted to own Soul Edge and Soul Calibur. However, Soul Calibur 6 has brought back Ishka Farkas into the main canon, establishing that Farkas is a collective of souls who is devoted to serving Soul Edge. For more in-depth explanation on this and what it means, I recommend watching the video Has Ishka Oct Been Revealed, along with Soul Calibur 7's plot on my channel. In addition to the canonization of Ishka Farkas, we now have an addition of the Swords and Shepherds. Durer and Azola are now shown to be working for Siegfried, Nightmare. Old timeline, they were aiding his hostless Nightmare seen in Soul Calibur 4. The Sword and Shepherd teams that were added into Soul Calibur 6 are taking on the responsibility of finding Soul Edge shards now, where before it was Nightmare alone who was doing that. This massive addition adds many different variables that can alter Siegfried's trajectory going forward. These are Layla's thoughts. Season 2 of Soul Calibur 6 made a very big deal out of Ishka Oct, and I think that's on purpose. These souls that belong to the collective that is Ishka Farkas are very obviously meant to play a large role in the story going forward. We have only seen Oct on screen so far, and I get the feeling that she isn't loyal to Nightmare as she says she is. I get the feeling that she is going to become treacherous in the future, and that is going to hurt Nightmare going forward. Every Soul Calibur game has had a new boss, and I think this edition of the Souls-like Oct could potentially lend itself to Ishka Farkas being boss character in Soul Calibur 7, especially with how Nightmare is in a weakened state currently, and how they are still in the process of building up to Algol. Soul Calibur 6 has not reached as far as Soul Calibur 2 has reached yet, so Siegfried's story is far from over. However, given that Raphael is currently on a quest of his own to find Soul Edge for himself, I am inclined to believe that there will still be a showdown between Siegfried and Raphael. I could see perhaps Oct preferring Raphael's twisted mind over Siegfried's remorseful one and trying to push for that battle to happen. However, ultimately, much is still up in the air and it could really go anywhere from here. As I have actually said in the past, it is super hard to tell where the story is going to go from here because we've seen very few and minute little changes that are definitely going to be the catalyst or the plank to, build into a greater expansion of the story going forward to tell the story they actually want to tell as opposed to the directions that they took in the past. As we all know, different directors on different games led to different teams creating different stories, and the writers weren't always concise and the stories weren't always actually put together properly enough, and they seemed more of a catalyst to sell the game as opposed to telling a story. Such as we've seen with Soul Calibur 4, pushing the Soul Calibur and Star Wars narrative so much, just mainly because of the fact that funding dictated them to do so. And then 5 even further, trying to push them into an esports only base, varying them off of Street Fighter. So I think that seeing the little changes that we see even here now, like with Siegfried being amongst one of the characters that actually sees a lot of these changes, we're definitely going to see the expansion of the story go into new and interesting ways in the future. And even though the story is mainly pretty much set up completely in Season 2 of Soul Calibur 6, who's to say what can change in that point or what can happen between now and when the game actually releases. So there's a lot of things and variables that are up in the air that can actually happen. Once again, I want to thank you guys for listening to this Timeline Differences video starring Siegfried, and thank you, Layla, for writing and providing the script and your thoughts as always. And if you guys have anything to say or any comments or commentary, please leave them in the comment section down below, or you can join the free Discord, which is in the description box down below, and give me your thoughts there. Any and all thoughts are always welcome, guys, and as I always say, I love it. Thank you.
And thank you.